Hi, I'm Jacob Marcus, and today we're looking at case studies, a module within the data and business analyst curriculum. And in this lesson, we're actually going to do an example of a case, leveraging some of the skills and tools that we developed earlier in this foundational series. So starting out here, Ice Cream Co. is a mid-sized ice cream retailer in the Southeast region. You are working with the VP of Sales and Marketing to figure out why profitability is down 20% in the last year. So this case is pretty direct. Sometimes you get a lot of extra information, but you might read this back as you're going through the prompt and just kind of summarize here that profitability is down. Clearly, there's kind of some negative trend here, and we're trying to investigate how we might be able to reverse that for this ice cream retailer. You won't always be explicitly asked, but here we're saying, how would you approach this business question? And so this is your opportunity to ask clarifying questions. So I might ask, well, I'll just flip to this. So I might ask, how have costs changed over the last year? And the purpose of that question is trying to break out profitability, right? I know that's related to revenue or costs or both, but this might help me narrow in on my hypothesis. And then secondly, what is the state of the competition? Have the businesses declined across the board for ice cream, or is this something that's uniquely impacting us? Um, and so hopefully you get an answer from the interviewer. And sometimes, in the first case, costs are flat. That's a bit of a dead end, but we know that mostly what's happening here is probably revenue related then. So might ask more questions about that or expect that in the case. And then secondly here, there are three competitors. One of them has the new business model without retail locations. So it sounds a bit like a ghost kitchen or something like that. They partner with ride sharing to distribute product for $1 delivery fee. So that's a little bit extra information. And, I understand that we might be focused more on revenue for the case and specifically looking at, the competitive landscape and kind of the market share for these different competitors. So framework time. How do we build a framework from here? So again, there's not one way. Hopefully you remember the last lesson, but we have to do something. So let's start with just some buckets here. I would start with profitability because at the end of the day, that is an important criteria for operating a business. I would think about the ice cream industry and understanding kind of the bigger trends there, and maybe some of our internal capabilities or what's happening within Ice Cream Co. that's leading to all of this, right? And I'm starting with the buckets because for time, it's better to have, again, MISI, it's better to have multiple kind of exclusive buckets than, going into a lot of details about profitability or something and not considering some of the wider potential drivers. But now we'll go into detail. So within profitability, revenue, we know that that is kind of one of the key differences here. And I know that this is composed of the number of units that we sell and the price of those units. So that's two pieces of important information to look into. And then costs, we know they're flat, but maybe there's still a way that, are they above the industry standard? Can we reduce them? And are they are they similar to our competitors? So there's fixed and variable. Within the ice cream industry, so again, we kind of asked about it initially. We know there's a couple competitors, but I'd love to know more about the competitive landscape, how those companies operate, what are their market share. What about the customer preference? How is that changing? Are people moving towards frozen yogurt or uh, subscription models, right? That would be interesting. And kind of more widely, what is the market moving towards? So market trends. And are there supply chain constraints or things like that? Internally, and this is where it seems like whatever's happening is affecting Ice Cream Co. It's not like an industry-wide movement from the initial information there. How does our distribution work? Do we do any of this kind of ride-sharing delivery? What about sales and marketing? That's always a good one, right? Are we getting our name out there? Maybe people don't even know we exist. And what is our competitive advantage? Like, it might not be distribution specific, but do we have specific partnerships or a unique flavor of ice cream or something like that? Um, and maybe a little more about product development, right? So I can understand the life cycle if we do need to develop something new or procure kind of a new flavor there. So I would and here's typed up so that you don't have to look at my handwriting any longer. I would have kind of focused on this revenue piece, and again, having a hypothesis is really helpful at this stage. So you might even just say like I'm interested in revenue, given that costs have remained flat, and understanding the competitive landscape because I can see that this new competitor seems to be taking market share, and I want to understand who they're taking it from. Um, at that point, you might also propose a hypothesis of how you could reverse this. Not, I wouldn't make it this 5 bullet list, but this is just an example of kind of multiple solutions. Um, I think, we could introduce a new product maybe that gains interest. We could increase sales and marketing, anything from this framework, right? You could probably increase and uh, and have an explanation for how that would increase profitability. Um, Cost cutting initiatives, like we mentioned. So there's a couple different areas there you could propose, but most likely, the interviewer is going to come back and try to focus you in on where the case is headed. So um, for this one, it's a lot of information, and this might be shared or handed to you in person. But again, just kind of read through it and talk out loud. So and keep your framework handy as you go through here and see, if you still want to focus in on those areas. So looking at market. Three main competitors. So we asked this. It seems like it's being provided again. They've experienced similar declines. Okay, so this is affecting the whole industry. It seems like, or this new first mover is taking market share away from the three main competitors. There's a new ice cream company in town with similar prices product, but a new model. They do not have retail locations. Okay, so the customer pays an additional $1 pint for the delivery fee that goes directly to the ride sharing partners. So that's important because essentially that means it's not driving their revenue, but it might be increasing the volume of their sales by having this distribution strategy. The company, so this is about Ice Cream Co. We know most of this. We're a major ice cream retailer in the Southeast, purchases ice cream from a distributor. Okay, so we only purchase from a distributor and sell at store locations. So that's something to keep in mind. That is a differentiating piece from this other successful competitor. And we only sell prepackaged. Okay, so something about product maybe to consider there. Revenue's down 20%. We already knew that. On average, each store sells 2,000 pints per month at a price of $6.25. Okay, so that's enough. P times Q, we could probably solve for revenue, but let's not just start multiplying numbers. Cost side, variable costs, and fixed costs. Okay. So let's keep this handy somewhere. And then the next question is actually to calculate the average monthly profit for each store. So, you can flip back and forth between these slides. If it's helpful, pause this first and try to do it yourself. But let's write it out and do it together. So I would break it out first. We can think about the contribution margin, or basically for each unit that we sell, kind of how does that break down? So we said we can sell them at a price of $6.25 and they cost $1.45 variable for each unit. So that is $4.80 per pint. And I don't know if that's good or bad, right? we'll kind of develop that, but it seems reasonable. Monthly revenue. So that's going to be the contribution margin, which is $4.80. And this is the way I like to kind of go line by line, bringing each number down, sanity checking it, and talking through any insights. That's an arrow. So that's the 480 times how many pints, which we were told is, not a dollar sign, but 2,000 pints of ice cream. So that's 9,600 in revenue per month per store. And then again, that's, speaking to the context of the case. Again, I don't know if that's good or bad. Seems reasonable for an ice cream store to be generating $10,000 in revenue. It's not billions, so it passes my sanity check. And what about the monthly profit? So that is the $9,600 of revenue that we just calculated minus the variable costs, sorry, the fixed costs, which if you add those up and the monthly allocation, so it's $5,000. So 5,000 for labor, 2,000 for rent, 1,000 for utilities. Literally just adding those up, 9,500. That's $100 a month in profit. So that doesn't seem like much. I guess my first instinct is it is profitable, so that's worth calling out. Better than running at a loss. Um, but that doesn't sound great to me. So something that I might calculate to help me draw some insight is the specific, like the profit margin, um, which is profit divided by revenue, and that's only about 1%. I mean, $10,000 would be 1%. So the food industry is known for having low margins, but that's really low. So I might put a sad face there. Um, because again, if one of these drivers change or variables, or we have a tough month in sales, that could easily become negative. So um, here are those calculations again in more detail. And the point here is that yeah, even for the food industry, right? That's a pretty slim margin. So the next question here is, how can Ice Cream Co. increase their margin? So again, we could decrease costs, we could increase revenue, but let's get a little more specific and think through this. So um, the fixed costs are pretty high, right? The 9,500 here. So maybe there's something there that we could do. Labor is 50% of that. So maybe less people in the stores or hiring lower skilled labor that we don't have to pay as much. That's one possible solution. And again, this is just brainstorming. So anything that you feel like you can, in the real world kind of explain some of these numbers, this is your chance to do that. So another one is, lowering the price. So this 625, depending on the price sensitivity or price elasticity, right? Maybe we decrease that to $5, but then the pints that we sell will go up. So kind of understanding the relationship between those two. However, and this is where you can call out a risk. The margins are so small that might be a little risky to start playing with that dynamic. Maybe another way is looking at value add opportunities, right? So kind of similar to the distribution through ride sharing, maybe we could start bundling in something else. Maybe there's like t-shirts or maybe some online skins for a video game that might get some sales and increase WTP, willingness to pay, right? Maybe someone's willing to pay $7 for a pint of ice cream if it's made in a certain customized way or with a certain delivery time. So those are kind of some initial thoughts on brainstorming. But case isn't over. You never know. So here's another question, right? The ride-sharing ice cream competitor also charges $6.25 a pint. So we're getting more information here. So they're actually pricing at parity with us, and they're charging $1 on top of that, but they're considerably more profitable. So why would that be the case? Um, and you got to think of a hypothesis here. It could always be something else. Maybe their location is better, right? Maybe the initial hypothesis is just that there's a cost advantage, right? Our costs are flat, but clearly, if they're more profitable, their margin must be larger. It's not running at 1%. And so we could actually look into some of the different, areas of fixed and variable costs that were provided to us and hypothesize which are different. And some of those are called out here, right? So maybe, we operate out of retail locations. So the rent is a lot more. Maybe the labor is more expensive because we have to, or we have to buy permits. We need to have people in a more urban area, which requires paying them more. And thinking of the fixed costs, they're only selling via ride sharing, so there could be some big differences there. um, the way that they manage inventory might be entirely different. Maybe they don't have to keep it on hand as often. They can just pick it up from a distributor. um, Maybe the fees associated with the ride sharing partnership that's an increased area there. So understanding kind of the full range of impacts there. But again, this list could be very long. So again, we are in the conclusion phase. So at this point, they might say, oh, the CEO of Ice Cream Co. is coming over. Can you summarize what we did today real quick? Or, just ask you for a summary directly. And so I think these are 4 helpful areas to think through during a summary. So starting out, right, talk about what you did that day. So the summary is that we evaluated the profit margin and cost structure of Ice Cream Co. relative to competitors. After doing that, we recommend that in order to compete with this new competitor who is using ride sharing, Ice Cream Co. must increase their margins, either by reducing costs or finding ways to increase sales volume, maybe with bundling or something. And you can call out the data point. So that's supported by the fact that each store is only making $100 in profit. So that's not sustainable. Maybe we need to close certain stores. Because remember, this is an average. So maybe there are certain stores that aren't profitable and certain ones that are very profitable. Some of the risks here, current fixed costs might be under long-term contracts. So maybe we can't really touch some of those costs. So we would need to investigate that. Other risks, there might be other entrants to the market that might continue to steal market share. So we have to act quickly. We might not have the luxury of kind of, doing this in a systematic way. So next steps, again, always helpful to call out. Let's deep dive the cost structure, see kind of what is controllable, which costs we can, reduce and what those opportunities are. And let's collect store-specific data. And again, to understand and kind of justify which locations, we should potentially shut down. So again, that's shooting for about a minute or 2 in the summary. You don't have to cover everything, but hopefully making kind of a compact, concise way of summarizing the full case and coming to that hypothesis or the conclusion at the end that the hypothesis of revenue was actually not the right direction. We had to focus on costs, and so that was an ice cream case. We'll do a couple different industries. So yeah, thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next lesson.